विदिताखिलशास्त्रसुधा जलधे महितोपनिषत्कथितार्थनिधे हृदये कलये विमलं चरणं भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। करुणावरुणालय पालय मां भवसागरदुःखविदूनहृदम् रचयाखिलदर्शनतत्त्वविदं भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। भवता जनता सुहिता भविता निजबोधविचारणचारुमते कलयेश्वर जीवविवेकविदं भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। भव एव भवानिति मे नितरां समजायत चेतसि कौतुकिता मम वारय मोहमहाजलधिं भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। सुकृतेऽधिकृते बहुधा भवतो भविता समदर्शनलालसता अतिदीनमिमं परिपालय मां भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। जगति भवितुं कलिताकृतयो विचरन्ति महामहसश्चलतः अहिमांशुरिवात्र विभासि गुरो भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। गुरुपुङ्गवपुङ्गवकेतनते समतामयतां नहि कोऽपि सुधीः शरणागतवत्सलतत्त्वनिधे भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। विदिता न मया विशदैककला न च किञ्चन काञ्चनमस्ति गुरो द्रुतमेव विधेहि कृपां सहजां भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्। भवशङ्करदेशिकमे शरणम्।
Namaskaram and welcome to all to the series of Abhijnana Shankaram. We start this series today on the occasion of Shankara Jayanti and take it over the next 4 days. The one question which I have been thinking about and people have been asking of, or you might be thinking as well, there are so many events happening on the occasion of Shankara Jayanti today. There are many institutions, many individuals, many lectures, many events that are happening for a day, for a week, for a month, celebrating the greatness of the Acharya. So then why, an additional event that is being hosted by Subbu's Corner? I would respond to that in two ways. The first is that the greatness of the Acharya is such that how much ever you speak about him, how much ever you remember him, his works, his life is not enough. The more you remember, the more you speak about him, it still feels that there is something more to be spoken about, to be thought about. And secondly, there is a beautiful Brahma Sutra which says, Avrittihi asakrit upadeshat. That is, the instruction of the knowledge of Brahman or Brahma Vidya. Ideally, if the knowledge is given by the Guru, the Shishya just accepts it immediately and he realizes Brahman then and there. So there comes a Purva Paksha, there comes a refutation that if that be the case, then what is the need to continuously keep listening, continuously keep thinking about Brahman, continuously keep meditating on Brahman? So, as a discussion that happens as a part of the sutra, Acharya himself says that if the Shishya is able to realize Brahman the very moment he hears it from the Guru, it's great. But most cases it is not the case, because we are conditioned by our vasanas, our impressions of so many births, that just by hearing once it does not go away. So you have to keep hearing to it continuously, listening to it continuously, and that is why the relevance of the sutra, avrittihi, asakrit, continuously keep on repeating the upadesha, the meditation on Brahman. The same applies to the Divya Charitam of Acharya Shankara. The more and more you speak about it, the more and more you think about it, the more and more you listen to it, you go into a state of meditation. You get into that state of greatness, that state of Brahman, maybe even for a few moments. If you are able to experience that, that itself is sufficient, that itself is the objective. So the more and more we speak about the Acharya, the more and more our mind gets absorbed in that self. So that is also the reason why, despite multiple events or multiple happenings during the occasion of Shankara Jayanti, Subhu's Corner is also hosting a 5-day series on Acharya Shankara, on knowing Shankara, Abhijnana Shankaram, primarily from this objective that those few minutes that we speak about him, we listen about him, our mind gets absorbed into him. And may his grace be always there on us for us to realize the ultimate objective of our life. With this introduction, I begin the series of Abhijnana Shankaram. It is spread over 5 days, as I mentioned. We start with the Karana, the reason for the Avatara, the incarnation of the Acharya. We then go on to the contribution of Acharya to Sanatana Dharma. Then we spend some time in understanding the Siddhanta, the Advaita Siddhanta that Acharya re-emphasized, re-established. We then spend a day to speak about the different misconceptions and myths that surround the life and works of Acharya. And finally, the relevance of Acharya for today. So this is how we have spread the topics over the 5 days. And the reason for taking up this kind of an approach versus speaking on the Digvijaya or speaking on just the life of Acharya is because I have spoken about the life of Acharya earlier, which is also available on my website, on my YouTube and Facebook pages. In detail, I have spoken about the Acharya's Charitam. Many of you know about the Charitam of Acharya, the story of Acharya, and few of his works. So I felt that probably this could be a different approach, where we think about the different aspects related to the Acharya, and I will, in my limited competence and limited ability, try to speak on these topics. So today we speak about the reason for the avataranam of the Acharya. Before that, what we need to know is the background or the context. The Vedas are the basis of our dharma. That is why our dharma is actually called as Vaidika dharma. I've mentioned this in multiple forums in the past that the term Hindu is a much later development. Our dharma has always been called the Vaidika dharma because it is based on the Vedas. Vedas form the basis of this dharma, of this civilization, of this way of living, of this people. Now, what do you mean the Vedas form the basis? Because what we understand of the Vedas are the four books called the Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva Veda. So, can four books be the basis of a civilization? No. Vedas comes, the term Veda itself comes from the root Vida, that is to know, and hence Vedas mean knowledge. Knowledge forms the basis of this dharma. And we understand as we read through the Puranas, we understand also that what we have today, the extant form of Vedic literature, is just a portion of what existed as Vedas in the past. The Vedas were so brihat, were so infinite. That is why it is called Anantavai Vedaha. The Vedas are infinite because knowledge is infinite. Knowledge can never be limited. You can never say that this is the knowledge. No, the moment you know that, there is something else that becomes unknown. So then you have to start knowing about it. So this way knowledge keeps on expanding. There is no limit to knowledge. So because Vedas mean knowledge, they are infinite. So it is a dharma, it is a civilization based on knowledge. And because it is based on knowledge, it is based on seeking, because knowledge comes only when you seek knowledge. You seek for something, and the moment you understand it, that becomes knowledge. And then there is an ignorance of something else. Then you start seeking that, and that becomes knowledge, and so on. So this entire dharma, this entire civilization is being based on knowledge. And the ancestors did not stop with exploring the different aspects of knowledge. They also tried to question what is the essence of all this knowledge, because this way the knowledge just keeps on expanding. There is no end to it. So if you were to know what is the real essence of all this, what is the essence of knowledge? What is the essence of the Vedas? When they started contemplating, when they started seeking that, they arrived, they hit the gold mine with the Vedanta, the Anta of Vedas, the culmination of the Vedas, the culmination of knowledge, which is what we refer to as Upanishad, which is the essence of all knowledge. And what do the Upanishads speak of? The Upanishads speak of the ultimate reality, which is called Brahman. That reality, which is the substratum of the entire universe, that substratum on which this entire universe, from which it emerges, on which it is sustained, and into which it dissolves, that substratum is what they found as the core essence of all knowledge. And this Brahman is nothing but the very living force of each one of us. The very life is nothing but Brahman. That is why it was described with the attributes of Sat Chit Ananda, the one that is existence, consciousness, and bliss, which is nothing but an expression or nothing but a definition of life itself. So the very life is Brahman. And this is where our seers, our rishis, sought and finally found that this is where the knowledge emerges, on which the knowledge sustains, and into which the knowledge dissolves. And that is the essence of all knowledge. This essence of all knowledge is what we find codified in the Upanishads, which form chronologically, or if you look at the literature, they come towards the end of the Vedic literature because it is the essence or the end or the culmination of all the Vedic knowledge. But this knowledge has been transmitted from generation to generation, from the teacher to the student, from the teacher to the student. And there have been times when this transmission has suffered challenges and different issues in these transmission, which has led to this knowledge getting absent, so the knowledge becoming absent in few times in history. When this knowledge goes away is when dharma starts to decline, because dharma is founded on this knowledge, this essence of the Vedas. And that is when this dharma goes away, the entire society collapses, because the entire society is formed on this dharma. Hence, to bring back the society and reinstate the society, this dharma has to be upheld. And that is where an incarnation or an avatara or an avatarana happens in our tradition. That is exactly what the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanihi bhavati bharata. When the glani, when the decline of dharma happens, abhyuttanam adharmasya tada atmanam sarjamyaham. I will myself keep on appearing. I'll create myself in a form that is suitable to uplift that dharma. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. This dharma, establishment of this dharma, and the ultimate of all dharma being the essence of the Vedas, or the essence of the Vedic dharma, which is the Upanishads or the Vedanta or Brahma Vidya, that is the objective of an avatarana. The context that we speak about is a time when the great enlightened one Buddha had appeared on the face of the earth. He lived and then he disappeared from the face of this earth. And then a following started towards the teachings and the ideals of the Buddha, which came to be called as Buddhism. But like any other sect or cult or tradition, Buddhism also started suffering a lot of interpolations and wrong interpretations and falling into the hands of the wrong people or the amateur people, which then led to the degradation of Buddhism. From the high ideals of what it practiced of ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha, it started coming down to huge levels of violence if people did not accept or embrace Buddhism. The other fallout of the widespread proliferation of Buddhism was doing away with rituals. At this point, I may mention, which I'll deal with more in detail on day 3, but it's important to mention that, as we said, the entire dharma is founded on the Upanishads or the essence of the Vedas. But not all will be able to understand what is mentioned in the Upanishads, or that highest ideal or that highest message that is given may not be that everybody in the society is in a position to understand that, or has a mental maturity to understand that. That is why our Vedic dharma, it lays a path which starts from karma and slowly moves towards jnana or knowledge. So this karma is what is manifested as various rites and rituals which are laid down for different kinds of people in the society. The only objective of all these rites and rituals is cleaning the mind, making the mind pure, the purity of the mind that can then become suitable to understand the message and the knowledge as mentioned in the Upanishads. Chitta Shuddhi is what is the ultimate objective of all these rites and rituals. And from there on begins the journey of the sadhaka towards jnana, towards the ultimate knowledge of Brahman. So this has to be viewed together. You can never say that one is superior over the other. The ultimate knowledge of this entire process is definitely Brahman, but that may not be the starting point for everybody. The starting point for many will be karma, and slowly moving towards jnana. The fallout of Buddhism was that it completely shunned away the rites and rituals and just focused on not even the jnana, but probably the yamas that you may call, the basic qualities that you need to live a cordial life. Those are the prerequisites. So it shunned away with the rites and rituals completely. With nothing to hold on, the society or the people who embraced Buddhism, it became difficult for them to not have anything to have a hold or grip on, which they can then maintain with discipline and move towards purity of mind. Because even when we say that Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Ahimsa, we say these as ideals, it is not easy to even practice these ideals just like that. When you make a person to follow Ahimsa, just by telling him that you should be non-violent and you should follow Ahimsa doesn't help. You must put it into practice and you must give him certain disciplines, certain things for him to keep doing on a daily basis, so that slowly he starts moving towards a mental maturity, a mental level where he becomes non-violent, where he becomes truthful. So that process was somewhere missed out, not just in Buddhism, but then the other religions that started cropping up. And that became a huge blow to the Vedic Dharma, because people started shunning away doing the Vedic rites and rituals. And the Jnana Kanda was completely gone, because without the basis of the Karma Kanda, the Jnana Kanda can never survive. Without the requisite karma for Chitta Shuddhi, you can never understand the ultimate message of the Upanishads. So the Upanishads definitely became far-fetched. It was during this time that the Lord, true to his promise in the Gita, took the avatarana on the Vaishaka Shukla Panchami, the Tithi that we have today. In Kerala Pranta, as the child of Shivaguru and Aryamba, as a result of their prayers to Lord Vrishachaleshwara or Vadakunnathan in Trishiva Perur or Trishur as it is called today. And the boy was named Shankara. Shamkaroti iti Shankaraha. The one who will do good to the entire universe is Shankara. It is said that Shivaguru was reading the Rudra, the Namakam, and when the news of the child's birth came, he was at the point where it was Namah Shankaraya Jamayaskaraya Cha, and that Shankara then was applied to the child as the name. So this avatarana of the Acharya was primarily to bring back, to re-establish, to re-emphasize, to bring in the knowledge again of the Upanishads, of the Jnana Kanda, back to the people and show them the path again for liberation. There's a beautiful verse that says, Ajnanantar Gahanapatitan Atma Vidyopadeshaihi Tratum Lokan Bhavadava Shikhatapa Papachamanan Muktva Maunam Vatavitapinoho Mulato Nishpatanti Shambhor Murtihi Charati Bhuvane Shankaracharya Rupam. In this parampara of jnana, the first is considered as Dakshinamurti, is the ultimate guru. He's called a Shambhu because he was as it is. Shambhu. Bhu means to be. He was that condensed knowledge bliss, that supreme guru. Through Mauna Bhasha itself, he passed on the message of Brahma Vidya to the 4 Brahma Kumaras. Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, Sanat Kumaras. But when this time in the society came where where there was need for action, that same Dakshinamurti who was sitting silent under the tree, he rose and started walking, started talking, started writing. So Shambhu became Shankara. The Bhu verb, that is to be, became Kara, to do. So Shankara came as a Karana Purusha, as an Avatara Purusha, to bring back the society to reinstate the ultimate goal of our human purpose, of our human life. So this entire society that was drowned in Ajnana, Ajnanantar Gahana Patitan, they have fallen down in ignorance. To bring them back through Atma Vidya, through the knowledge of the self, knowledge of Brahman, Atma Vidyopadeshaihi Tratum, to protect them. And how these people were, they were burning, they were being cooked the fire of samsara. Bhava dava shikha tapa papachyamanan. Muktva maunam vadavita pinoho. He left his silence. Mulato rishpatanti shambhor murtihi charati bhuvane. He's still walking around all of us. Charati is the verb used there, not acharat. It is not that he walked at some point of time. No. Charati. He is still walking. Charati bhuvane in this world as Shankaracharya. So this was the objective, the karana for the avatarana of Acharya, to reinstate the message of the Upanishads, to show us that the goal of human life is to know yourself, to know Brahman, to know the Atman, to know your true nature. That is the true purpose of your life, to reorient ourselves rather than getting diversified into various pursuits in life and falling into this trap and getting burnt by the fire of samsara. So here we stop the session today. We'll continue the session tomorrow by speaking about the contribution of the Acharya towards this purpose for which he took birth on the earth. So until we meet for our next session, Namaskar.